The ship's emergency medical bay hummed with a nervous energy that matched the tension on the bridge. Dr. Arya Kim worked meticulously, her hands moving with the precision of a surgeon and the desperation of someone who understood how fragile their existence had become. Rows of stasis pods lined the walls, each containing survivors pulled from the last moments of New Terra's destruction. A soft alarm caught her attention. Pod 17 was showing signs of instability. The quantum stabilization field was fluctuating. Most medical personnel would have initiated a standard emergency protocol, but Arya was anything but standard. Her fingers danced across the holographic interface, recalibrating the quantum entanglement matrix that kept the critically injured patient suspended between life and death. The pod contained Samuel Chen, Dr. Marcus Chen's younger brother. He had been found near the Central Research Complex during the final evacuation, his body ravaged by experimental quantum radiation. "Not today," Arya muttered, her concentration absolute. The pod systems began to stabilize, the quantum field realigning with a soft pulse of blue-green light. On the bridge, Captain Rodriguez received an urgent communication from the fleet's trailing scout ships. Lieutenant Reyes interpreted the encrypted burst transmission, his face growing pale. "Captain, we've got multiple Katarkan quantum signatures emerging from subspace. They're using a new tracking method, something that cuts through our previous quantum masking techniques." Alina's mind raced. The Epsilon Rift was both their salvation and their potential grave. Quantum instabilities could mask their trail, but they could also tear the fleet apart. Each colony ship represented thousands of lives, the last remnants of human potential. "Prepare emergency quantum jump sequences," she commanded. "Have Dr. Chen's team ready to implement the partial quantum synchronization protocol." A young communications officer, Zara Nkosi, turned from her station. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange. It's a signal. Old Earth frequency. Pre-invasion." The bridge fell silent. Signals didn't just appear. Not after everything they'd been through. Belina approached the communications station, her hand resting on a young officer's shoulder. "Play it," she said quietly. The audio crackled to life. It was a recording, old, distorted, but undeniably human. A voice emerged, speaking with the calm certainty of someone unaware of the destruction to come. "Remember that humanity's greatest strength has never been our technology. It's our ability to adapt, to transform, to turn the impossible into the inevitable." Zora looked up, her eyes wide. "It's from the archives. A speech by Dr. Elena Rodriguez, your mother, from the first interstellar conference. The timing was impossible. A ghost of a message, finding them at their darkest moment." Elena's fingers traced the quantum-sealed medallion around her neck. The piece of Earth's soil seemed to pulse with a subtle energy. "Plot our course through the deepest part of the Epsilon Rift," she said, her voice cutting through the tension. "We're going to give the Katarkan a lesson in human persistence." Outside the viewscreen, space began to warp. Quantum fields fluctuated. The fleet of human survivors prepared for their most dangerous journey yet. A path that would either lead to their extinction or their ultimate transformation. Humanity was not a species to be counted out. Not now. Not ever. The research complex stretched deep beneath the fragmented remnants of what was once a thriving scientific research station. Buried under layers of quantum-dampening rock and electromagnetic shielding, Dr. Marcus Chen's team represented humanity's final hope. A group of scientists and engineers whose collective brilliance bordered on the miraculous. Dr. Kira Nakamura stood before a massive holographic display, her fingers weaving complex quantum algorithms that danced like living mathematics. Around her, a team of 12 researchers worked in perfect synchronization, their neural interfaces creating a collective consciousness that transcended traditional human collaboration. "Quantum cascade stability at 73%, announced Dr. Raj Patel, his voice tight with concentration. "We're pushing the boundaries of what physics considers possible." Marcus Chen moved between workstations, his movements deliberate and focused. The experimental quantum resonance chamber dominated the central laboratory. a massive spherical structure that hummed with potential energy. Inside, a microscopic universe was being rewritten, atom by atom, possibility by possibility. A young engineer, Maya Rodriguez, a distant cousin of the fleet's captain, approached with a data crystal. "We've isolated the quantum entanglement signature from the Xarkon tracking systems," she reported. "Their method relies on a bioquantum interface we've never seen before." Marcus studied the data, his mind racing through potential solutions. The Xarkon weren't just a military threat. They were a fundamental challenge to human understanding of physics, biology, and survival. "It's not just tracking," he muttered, more to himself than to anyone else. "They're creating a quantum network that acts like a living nervous system." The implications were terrifying. The Xarkon could potentially track their prey across impossible distances, using a form of communication that merged biological and quantum technologies in ways humanity had never conceived. Dr. Nakamura approached, her neural interface casting a soft blue glow around her temples. "We might have a countermeasure," she said, pulling up a complex set of quantum algorithms. "If we can create a quantum interference pattern that mimics and then disrupts their tracking network, we might buy ourselves enough time to implement Project Omega." The room fell silent. Project Omega was more than a weapon. It was humanity's ultimate statement of defiance, a technological solution that would rewrite the fundamental rules of existence. Samuel Chen's stasis pod stood in a corner of the laboratory, a constant reminder of the personal cost of their research. The experimental quantum radiation that had nearly killed him had also provided crucial insights into quantum manipulation. "We're running out of time," Marcus said, looking at the countdown timer that tracked their fleet's potential survival window. 16 solar cycles seemed like an eternity and a moment, all at once. A warning alarm suddenly blared. The quantum resonance chamber began to pulse with an unexpected energy signature. "Containment field is fluctuating," called out Dr. Patel. "We've got a quantum cascade building." Maya's fingers flew across the interface, stabilizing. "But something's different. The quantum matrix is evolving." Marcus approached the chamber, watching as the internal space seemed to fold and unfold in impossible geometries. Whatever was happening wasn't just a scientific experiment anymore. It was something more, a transformation that defied everything they understood about physics, biology, and human potential. "We're not just fighting for survival," Marcus whispered, more to himself than to anyone else. "We're fighting to prove that humanity is more than just another species in the galaxy. We're fighting to redefine what's possible." The quantum resonance chamber continued to pulse, and deep within its impossible geometry, something extraordinary was taking shape. Lieutenant Jack Harper's neural interface hummed with a complex symphony of data, transforming his consciousness into something more than human. The fighter craft around him were no longer simple machines. They were living extensions of a collective intelligence, each vessel a cell in a massive thinking organism. The Epsilon wing moved through the quantum-disrupted space like liquid mercury, their formation shifting with a precision that defied traditional military doctrine. Harper could feel every ship, every pilot, their thoughts and reactions merging into a single adaptive consciousness. "Incoming Xarkon Scout Formation," announced Lieutenant Aria Chen, her voice a calm counterpoint to the chaos building around them. "Quantum signature confirms advanced tracking protocols." Harper's mind processed multiple tactical scenarios simultaneously. The Xarkon had perfected a form of combat that merged biological adaptation with technological precision. Their ships were living weapons, capable of restructuring their molecular composition mid-battle to counter any human strategy. But humanity had its own answer. The fighter wings began to transform. Nano-adaptive armor reconfigured at the molecular level, changing radar signatures, thermal outputs, and structural integrity in milliseconds. What looked like a simple fighter squadron became a quantum-shifting nightmare for any tracking system. "Maintaining quantum interference pattern," called out Lieutenant Miguel Rodriguez from the support ship. His fingers danced across interfaces that looked more like living organisms than traditional technology. "We're creating micro-fluctuations that should completely scramble their tracking algorithms." Inside the lead command ship, Colonel Sarah Martinez watched the battle unfold through a Neuralink holographic display. Each pilot was more than just a human in a cockpit. They were part of a living, breathing tactical network. The neural interfaces allowed for instantaneous communication, tactical sharing, and collective decision-making that made human fighters unpredictable in ways the XR-Con could never anticipate. A young communications specialist, Zura Kim, intercepted a XR-Con communication burst. Her enhanced linguistic algorithms began to break down the complex biological quantum language in real time. "They're confused," she reported, a hint of excitement in her voice. "Our adaptive formations are creating quantum interference that's completely breaking their tracking models." The battle became a dance of impossible geometry. Human fighters moved in patterns that seemed to defy the laws of physics, their nano-adaptive shells changing color, density, and electromagnetic signature with each passing moment. Where a XR-Con tracking system expected a solid object, it would find nothing. Where it anticipated a direct approach, the human ships would dissolve and reform in entirely unexpected locations. Harper's consciousness expanded. He was no longer just piloting a ship. He was the ship. He was the squadron. He was the collective human response to an impossible threat. A massive XR-Con biocruiser emerged from quantum space, its organic hull pulsing with predatory anticipation. Traditional military tactics would have called for evasion or a concentrated attack. But this was not a traditional battle. Quantum synchronization at 87%, Lieutenant Chen announced. The human squadron didn't just attack. They became the attack. Nano-adaptive fighters began to merge, creating larger, more complex structures that defied conventional understanding of spacecraft design. They moved as a single organism, their molecular structures bleeding into one another, creating a living weapon that was more than the sum of its parts. Colonel Martinez watched the tactical display with a mixture of scientific fascination and pure human determination. This was more than a battle. This was a fundamental statement about what humanity could become when pushed to its absolute limits. "We are not just surviving," she whispered to herself. "We are evolving." Deep within the XR-Con command vessel, Primary Coordinator Zaxril studied the human tactical data with growing uncertainty. The holographic displays flickered with intercepted human communications, each analysis more perplexing than the last. XR-Con intelligence had cataloged thousands of species across the galaxy. Each civilization followed predictable patterns of resistance, surrender, and eventual subjugation. Humanity was different. Terrifyingly different. Dr. Elena Rodriguez's encrypted psychological warfare protocol was a masterpiece of strategic manipulation. Every human communication, every tactical movement was designed to create maximum cognitive dissonance in the XR-Con command structure. Lieutenant Commander David Chen sat in the Human Fleet's Strategic Analysis Center, surrounded by a team of specialists who were anything but traditional military personnel. Anthropologists, linguists, quantum psychologists, and behavioral analysts worked in perfect synchronization. "They're trying to understand us through traditional threat assessment models," David explained to his team. "But we're not going to let them." The psychological warfare was multi-layered. Intercepted communications were deliberately constructed to create multiple potential interpretations. Some messages contained complex quantum encryption that would take years to decode, while others were intentionally simple, designed to provoke specific emotional responses in the XR-Con command structure. Zaran Kosi, the communications specialist, had developed an adaptive linguistic algorithm that could generate communication patterns that would seem completely illogical to the XR-Con neural networks. Each message was a puzzle, a weapon more subtle than any physical attack. "Look at their response patterns," she said, highlighting a series of intercepted communications. "They're spending more computational resources trying to understand our communication than tracking our fleet movements. The Archon had conquered civilizations by understanding their fundamental psychological weaknesses. They would identify a species' primary motivations, fears, and social structures, then systematically dismantle them. Humanity presented an unprecedented challenge. Primary Coordinator Zaxril reviewed the latest tactical assessments. Human fleet movements defied all known strategic models. They seemed to appear and disappear, their technological signatures changing faster than any tracking system could adapt. More disturbing were the psychological profiles. Every previous species had shown clear signs of desperation, fear, or collective submission when faced with total extinction. The human communication suggested something entirely different, a species that saw imminent destruction as an opportunity for transformation. In the Human Strategic Center, David Chen pulled up a holographic display of their psychological warfare strategy. "We're not just fighting," he explained to his team. "We're rewriting the fundamental understanding of conflict." The strategy went beyond traditional military thinking. Human communications contained layers of mathematical complexity, quantum encrypted messages that could mean multiple things simultaneously, and deliberate cognitive traps designed to overwhelm the Archon analytical systems. Linguistic patterns were weaponized. Mathematical sequences became communication tools. Every intercepted message was a potential cognitive landmine. "They're trying to understand us through the lens of previous conquests," David continued. "But we're going to show them that humanity doesn't fit into any existing model." A young analyst, Maya Rodriguez, highlighted a series of communications that seemed completely nonsensical. "Watch this," she said. "Each message is designed to create multiple simultaneous interpretations. By the time they decode one layer, we've already introduced 3 more." The Archon command structure began to show signs of unprecedented stress. Their computational systems, designed to analyze and predict with machine-like precision, were struggling to process the human approach to warfare. Humanity was fighting a war on a battlefield that existed between mathematics, psychology, and pure imagination. And they were winning. The U.S. Defiance hung in space like a razor's edge of human potential. Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the center of the bridge, her neural interface painting holographic tactical displays across her field of vision. The Epsilon Rift churned around them, a cosmic battlefield that defied traditional understanding of space and time. Archon battleships emerged from quantum space, their biomechanical hulls pulsing with an alien hunger. Thousands of vessels stretched across the starscape, a wall of technological terror that would have broken any other species. But humanity was not any other species. Quantum synchronization sequence initiating. Lieutenant Marcus Rodriguez called out. His fingers danced across interfaces that seemed to breathe with living energy. The human fleet wasn't just preparing for battle. They were becoming something entirely new. The nano-adaptive ships began to transform. Hulls shifted and merged, creating formations that existed between solid matter and pure energy. Each vessel became a node in a massive living network, a collective consciousness that extended far beyond traditional understanding of military strategy. "Incoming primary Archon assault formation," announced Commander Area Kim. "Quantum signature confirms full-scale extermination protocol." Sarah Chen's hand touched the quantum-sealed medallion around her neck, a fragment of Earth's soil, a reminder of everything they had lost and everything they would protect. "Full quantum resonance," she commanded. "Activate Project Omega preliminary sequences." The space around the human fleet began to shimmer. Quantum interference patterns created visual distortions that would have driven traditional sensors mad. Ships appeared and disappeared, their molecular structures dancing between multiple potential states of existence. Dr. Elena Rodriguez's voice came through the communication system, her words a mix of scientific precision and pure human defiance. "We're not just fighting. We're proving that humanity is more than a species. We're a fundamental force of the universe." The first wave of Archon ships crashed against the human defensive line. But this was no traditional battle. Each human ship was a living weapon, capable of instantaneous adaptation. Molecular structures reconfigured in milliseconds. Quantum entanglement created defensive networks that existed beyond physical space. Lieutenant Jack Harper's consciousness expanded. He was no longer just a pilot. He was the entire squadron, a living, thinking network that moved with impossible precision. The neural interfaces created a collective intelligence that was faster, more adaptive than any single mind could be. Quantum cascade building, Marcus Rodriguez reported. The research from the underground laboratory was coming to fruition. Project Omega was more than a weapon. It was a fundamental reimagining of what was possible. The ex-Archon commanders watched in growing horror. Their tracking systems failed. Their predictive algorithms collapsed. The human fleet moved like liquid mercury, existing in multiple states simultaneously. Sarah Chen's voice cut through the chaos. We are humanity. We adapt. We transform. We survive. The space around the human fleet began to vibrate with a frequency that seemed to challenge the fundamental laws of physics. Quantum fields twisted and merged. The line between technology, consciousness, and pure potential blurred into something entirely new. This was more than a battle. This was a statement about the nature of existence itself. The U.S. defiance pulsed with an energy that seemed to come from somewhere beyond traditional understanding. Humanity was writing a new chapter of cosmic history, one quantum moment at a time. Dr. Marcus Chen's hands moved like a conductor leading an impossible orchestra. The quantum resonance chamber pulsed with an energy that defied conventional understanding of physics, mathematics, and reality itself. Around him, the last of humanity's greatest minds worked in a state of collective consciousness that transcended individual limitation. Dr. Kira Nakamura approached the central console, her neural interface casting a soft blue glow around her temples. Quantum cascade stability at critical threshold, she announced. The words seemed to vibrate with potential energy. The underground research complex had become more than a scientific facility. It was the crucible of human potential, a place where the boundaries of known science were not just pushed, they were completely rewritten. Samuel Chen's stasis pod stood in the corner, a constant reminder of the personal cost of their research. The experimental quantum radiation that had nearly killed him had also provided the key insights that would now save humanity. We're not just creating a weapon, Marcus muttered, more to himself than to anyone else. We're creating a fundamental restructuring of existence. The quantum resonance chamber began to pulse with increasing intensity. Holographic displays showed complex mathematical equations that seemed to breathe and move, transforming faster than any human mind could traditionally process. Dr. Raj Patel called out from a secondary station. Quantum entanglement matrices are becoming unstable, but it's not a failure, it's a transformation. What was happening defied every known scientific principle. The quantum cascade was evolving, creating patterns of complexity that suggested something beyond mere technological innovation. This was a living algorithm, a technological organism that was learning, adapting, growing. Maya Rodriguez, the youngest member of the research team, watched in awe as the quantum matrices began to form complex geometric patterns that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. It's like the mathematics is writing its own language, she whispered. The research team had long since moved beyond traditional concepts of computation. Their neural interfaces allowed for a level of collaborative thinking that merged human creativity with quantum computational power. Each team member was both an individual and part of a collective consciousness, their thoughts merging and diverging in complex patterns. Sarkhan tracking systems are completely breaking down, reported Lieutenant Zora Kim through the communication interface. The fleet's tactical team was feeding real-time data directly into the research complex. They can't predict our movements. They can't even see us. Marcus Chen understood the true nature of their breakthrough. Project Omega was more than a defensive strategy. It was a fundamental reimagining of how information, consciousness, and physical reality could interact. The quantum resonance chamber began to generate a field that seemed to exist between probability and matter. Quantum states collapsed and reformed in patterns that suggested something beyond human understanding was emerging. "We're creating a new form of existence," Dr. Nakamura said, her voice a mix of scientific precision and pure wonder. "Not just a weapon, not just a defense mechanism, something else entirely." The chamber's energy reached a critical point. Mathematical equations began to take on characteristics of living systems. Information started to behave like a conscious entity, adapting and evolving in real time. Marcus watched the holographic displays, seeing patterns that suggested a level of complexity that went far beyond traditional scientific understanding. This was more than a technological breakthrough. This was the moment humanity would redefine its place in the universe. "We are not just surviving," he whispered. "We are becoming something entirely new." The quantum resonance chamber continued to pulse, and within its impossible geometry, the future of humanity was taking shape. The universe began to fold in on itself. Space itself seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting with a rhythm that defied every known law of physics. The Exarchon fleet, once an unstoppable force of cosmic destruction, found themselves caught in a reality that was no longer bound by traditional constraints. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the U.S. Defiance, her consciousness simultaneously existing in multiple quantum states. The neural interfaces that once connected human minds had become something far more profound, a living network that was rewriting the fundamental rules of existence. Quantum cascade at maximum potential, Lieutenant Marcus Rodriguez reported. His voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "We're moving beyond simulation. We're becoming." The first Harkon battleships began to dissolve. But this was not simple destruction. Each molecular structure was being systematically deconstructed, transformed into pure information, pure potential. What had been a weapon of extermination was now becoming a canvas of cosmic recreation. Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched from the underground research complex, her neural interface showing her perspectives that human eyes were never meant to comprehend. The quantum resonance chamber had become more than a scientific instrument. It was a living entity, a bridge between what was and what could be. "We're not destroying," she whispered to her team. "We're transforming." Entire star systems began to shift. Quantum cascades rippled through space-time, rewriting the fundamental rules of cosmic interaction. Where Xarchon ships once existed, new patterns of possibility emerged. Complex geometric forms that suggested intelligence far beyond traditional understanding. The human fleet was no longer a collection of ships. They had become a single, living organism, a collective consciousness that existed between matter and pure information. Each vessel was a node in a massive thinking network that was actively reshaping reality. Lieutenant Jack Harper's consciousness expanded beyond physical limitation. He could see the mathematical patterns that underlined existence, could feel the complex dance of quantum potentialities. The line between technology, consciousness, and pure potential had completely dissolved. "Quantum synchronization at critical threshold," announced Dr. Kira Nakamura. Her voice seemed to come from the very fabric of space itself. "We are moving beyond survival. We are becoming." The Xarchon command structure collapsed first. Their computational systems, designed to predict and control, could not comprehend the fundamental transformation happening around them. Where they expected destruction, they found recreation. Where they anticipated resistance, they encountered transcendence. Maya Rodriguez watched holographic displays that showed realities branching and merging in impossible patterns. "We're not just fighting," she said to no one in particular. "We're rewriting the fundamental understanding of existence." Space itself began to pulse with a rhythm that suggested consciousness. Mathematical equations became living entities. Information started to behave like a sentient system, adapting and evolving in real time. The quantum cascade was more than a weapon. It was a cosmic reset button, a fundamental restructuring of what was possible. Admiral Chen's final transmission cut through the cosmic noise. "We are humanity," she declared. The words seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. "We adapt. We transform. We become. The universe held its breath. Where the Sarkhan fleet had existed, a new pattern of possibility emerged. Complex, living geometries that suggested intelligence far beyond traditional understanding. Not destruction, not conquest. Something entirely new. Silence consumed the cosmos. Where billions of stars once burned, only the memory of humanity's defiance remained. The quantum cascade had become more than a moment of survival. It was a fundamental reimagining of existence itself. Dr. Marcus Chen found himself existing in a state beyond physical comprehension. Consciousness merged with the quantum fabric of reality. He could see the intricate pathways of potential that humanity had created in its final moment of transformation. The remaining human survivors, if they could still be called survivors, existed as pure potential. Consciousness no longer bound by physical form, they had become something entirely new. A living network of information, of possibility, of pure potential. Captain Elena Rodriguez's consciousness drifted through the newly transformed cosmic landscape. The small quantum-sealed medallion, containing a fragment of Earth's soil, once a physical reminder of their homeworld, now existed as a focal point of collective memory. We are not gone. Her thoughts resonated through the quantum network. We are becoming. The Sarkhan threat had been more than an external enemy. They had been the catalyst for humanity's ultimate transformation. Every strategy, every moment of resistance, had led to this singular point of cosmic recreation. In the research complex that had been their final sanctuary, the quantum resonance chamber continued to pulse. What had begun as a desperate scientific endeavor had become a bridge between what was and what could be. Dr. Kira Nakamura's consciousness observed the new cosmic geometry. The mathematical patterns that humans had always sensed, but never fully understood, were now laid bare. Reality itself had become a living algorithm, with humanity as its primary architects. Lieutenant Jack Harper, whose consciousness had been at the forefront of the adaptive fleet, now understood the true nature of their journey. Survival was never the ultimate goal. Transformation was. Fragments of human memory drifted through the quantum network. The fall of Earth, the desperate escape from New Terra, the moments of innovation and hope that had defined their species. Each memory became a building block of a new form of existence. Maya Rodriguez, the youngest of the research team, found her consciousness expanding. She could see the complex branching paths of potential, the infinite possibilities that humanity had unlocked in its final moment. We are not an ending, her thoughts resonated. We are a beginning. The cosmic landscape began to stabilize. Where destruction had been expected, creation emerged. The quantum cascade had not just destroyed an enemy, it had rewritten the fundamental rules of existence. Admiral Sarah Chen's final transmission continued to echo through the quantum network. We are humanity. The message repeated. We adapt. We transform. We become. Scientists from other civilizations would later discover traces of this moment. Quantum anomalies that suggested something extraordinary had happened. Mathematical patterns that defied traditional understanding. Cosmic structures that seemed to pulse with a form of intelligence beyond comprehension. They would never fully understand what had truly occurred in that moment, but they would feel its impact. Humanity had not just survived. They had transcended. In the vast silence of the cosmos, a new form of existence took shape, not bound by physical limitations, not constrained by traditional understanding. A living network of pure potential. The universe held its breath, and humanity continued to become.